Take it there? Who gon' take it there? Who gon' take it there? Who gon' take it there? Electricity, 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 electricity. You know what's in the air. 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 It's possibility. It's possibility. It's possibility. It's possibility.
So the Republicans are working on passing their budget bill. This is a budget reconciliation bill. These pass every year, and it's essentially just arbitrating how the government's going to spend money over the course of the next year. So while it is very boring and procedural and mostly just comes down to amounts of money here or there, it is actually a formative bill that kind of decides how the resources of government are going to be utilized. And so in this situation where, it's highly politicized, everything is highly politicized in Congress in general, especially with Trump involved and the fact that Trump is trying to sort of reshape the federal government to benefit his own unilateral use of power, as well as benefiting Republicans and the rich in general. That makes this a highly divisive process. So Republicans have control of the House and the Senate. They have very thin control of the House. So that means that even marginal disagreements between Republicans on issues that they broadly agree with lead to things getting held up. And it's a major hurdle that Republicans have to face in this first part of Trump's term, even though they control everything. The House slows things down, particularly because there are some Republicans in the House that are in more competitive districts. They might get knocked out of office if they do something too radical, like cutting Medicare, Medicaid, or Social Security too much. Some Republicans in the House are not vulnerable to that, and so they aggressively want to cut those programs. Other Republicans are very much vulnerable to it. And so once that prospect comes up, even though they all campaigned on it, and this is obviously what Republicans stand for, they start to get cold feet. So the state that this bill is in now, significant cuts to Medicaid. They want to try to cut taxes across the board, and essentially it's revisiting the tax cuts from Trump's first term. So this is also the first thing that Trump did in his first term, is pass major tax cuts for the rich, and there were temporary tax cuts for everybody else. So there's some reporting that this bill is meant to make those tax cuts permanent, all the tax cuts permanent, but they still sunset in 2029, at the end of 2028, which would be at the end of Trump's first term. So some of those might be different. If any of them are going to be permanent, it's the tax cuts for the rich. Okay, just mark my words on that. And that's the primary function of this bill, is they want to cut taxes for the rich as much as possible. And they're doing it within this window because this big, giant hodgepodge bill, this budget bill, is one of the main ways that they're going to be able to get anything done. This same thing happened at the beginning of Biden's term as well, and again at the beginning of Trump's first term, although their majorities were stronger during Trump's first term. But even when Biden came in and the pandemic was still going on, that budget reconciliation was a moment where they were able to change a lot and institute a lot without it all being separate individual political issues. And, that's why something like $15 minimum wage, that could have been a transformative piece of that bill that, affected everybody's life permanently, just in a congressional budget bill. However, they knocked it out because of the parliamentarian, really just because Biden never wanted to actually do a $15 minimum wage. Anyway, it's the same kind of cold feet. And there are some interesting provisions in this bill that would benefit certain people. But again, those are the temporary ones, and it's important to keep in mind, especially as the corporate media landscape becomes more and more friendly to Trump and Republicans, that even these positive sounding things, or things that are positive on the face of them, those are the more likely things to get cut out of these bills. And so they'll try to drum up support, or just like a general sense that maybe what Republicans have going on isn't all that bad, based on the fact that they want to do certain child tax credits, or the no tax on tips thing, which is in the bill. But understand that those are going to be the first things that Republicans decide they don't want to be in the final version, because there are many, many steps to this process, and the bill is getting held back early on. So that's the phase that we're at. Doesn't mean that at some point things couldn't advance more quickly, but as of right now, with the House the way it is, it's difficult for them to agree on this. And really the main disagreement seems to be coming from people who want the cuts to be more aggressive. There's a flank of Republicans that think the cuts to Medicare should be deeper, and that the tax benefits to wealthy people should be higher. And so those are really the ones who are refusing to sign on to this bill right now. And Trump is positioned against them. He went to Congress to tell Republicans, that he just wants to pass this bill in general. So he's telling them, don't touch Medicaid any further, because that's, first of all, it's going to be risky for you. Second of all, you're holding up this bill that has a lot of things in it that I want to pass. And Trump knows that, again, this is one of their main opportunities to get anything done. Despite the fact that Republicans have, congressional power right now, this is their major opportunity, certainly when it comes to Trump and how fast he likes to move in terms of government. This is his main opportunity to get what he wants out of Congress. So there's things in there about hiring more immigration. He wants to put more money into this mass deportation process, which is gearing up, but they only have so much faculty and facility for doing that. So they want to detain and put, hundreds of thousands of people in detention. They want to hire a bunch of people and put funding towards that. And also a budget increase for the military. So picture this. Trump, as he is trying to cut taxes across the board for the wealthy more, they're the ones who are going to, the majority of the tax money that is going to be subtracted from the government is going to come from the rich. And they're the ones who are going to benefit the most from these tax cuts. And while he's cutting taxes, he's increasing money that goes to the military. So that means that money that goes to social services that benefit people who are not wealthy is now going to be going to the military. Whereas what he could be doing is cutting the military to pay for these tax cuts. But he doesn't want to do that. And the reason why is because the military is beneficial for the rich. Trump's main constituency is the rich. They're the ones who help fund his campaigns. These are the people that he is going to solidify deals with that will carry him through the rest of his life and his family through the rest of their lives. That's Trump's priority, is to establish business relationships and to use government power in whatever way he can, not only to do favors for people, but to create the environment where he can have profitable business relationships. So any move that Trump makes that doesn't seem to make sense, especially on economics, keep that in mind. He's trying to create an environment for himself to benefit, if he's not just outright doing a favor for somebody that he wants to benefit from. And so the way the military benefits the rich is that a lot of the wealth that is made in this country is made through the military industrial complex. So there are, factories and ultimately investors and capitalists who are facilitating the manufacturing of weapons. And so that does benefit certain workers and union workers, but for the most part, who it benefits is very wealthy people who live around Washington, D.C., people who are invested in various detention center or private prison companies, or just weapons manufacturing companies. And the best example of this, in my opinion, unfortunately, is Ukraine, where although I think that we should be supporting Ukraine and that supporting them against the invasion of Russia is, a morally correct thing to do, also, capitalists and people within the military-industrial complex in America benefited from the fact that Russia invaded Ukraine and began a war there. And so they see that as an opportunity, and that's exactly what happens is tax money goes to them to manufacture weapons and give them to Ukraine. And so that is materially how the U.S. has assisted Ukraine in this war, is by manufacturing weapons in America, which does benefit Americans, mostly rich ones, but also workers, like I said, and then those weapons go overseas. So in that way, the U.S. being able to be agile when it comes to military conflicts, sending weapons abroad or sending our own military resources abroad on various missions. That benefits the rich because it allows them and their companies to quickly take advantage of situations that arise globally. And in some ways, that's good for the American economy, but disproportionately for the people who are sort of orchestrating or just trying to profit from various conflicts that happen globally. And that's the case for Ukraine. It's the case for Israel and Gaza as well. And I don't want to downplay that, but I think Ukraine and Russia it's just an interesting example because we're helping Ukraine in that case. And that is an opportunity for American business people, even though Ukraine is a victim in that sense. But the same is true for us funding weapons that go to Israel and funding the Iron Dome, which protects Israel, which Trump now wants to use as a model to create the Golden Dome to protect America from nobody. The reason we gave Israel an Iron Dome is because they're a colony that's surrounded by enemies of theirs. And so it's useful to that country for them to have, to be able to shoot missiles out of the sky. America is not being threatened by missiles from anywhere. Now, I think it's possible that there are some, military lobbyists behind the scenes that think there's some kind of threat from China, that they're, going to basically have the capability to shoot weapons at us and missiles at us from space. And that's what this Golden Dome is aimed at, is putting U.S. Weapons in space, also aligned with Trump's Space Force, which he did in his first term, which is still there, by the way. So that, I think, would be the only thread that anybody behind the scenes in government could be following that would lead to the idea that we need to be able to shoot missiles out of the sky. But I think for the most part, what it is, it's just a gift to American weapons manufacturing companies that would be building that thing. It's useless. We don't need it. There's nobody that's going to be shooting missiles at the United States. That's not the kind of defense, even to the extent that we need defense. That's not the kind that we need. So it's a waste of money, and that is where they're appropriating our taxation to. They want to tax people still. We're all still going to be taxed less, but more of the money that we are taxed is going to go to these ridiculous military projects because the military budget is increasing. So for anybody who voted for Trump, because he's the anti-corruption, he's the anti-government, he wants to rein in government waste, and he's the anti-war candidate. I think it's pretty clear at this point that Trump is not anti-war. War is good for Trump. It's good for the people that he knows. I think the first time Trump came into office, that was less true. He was less affiliated and knew less people that were in military defense, military contracting, in that sort of revolving door system between private and then going into the government. There's a whole fucking swamp there, for lack of a better word. And while Trump has always been a part of the swamp, I do think he knew less people in that world when he first came into office. But now he's been into politics for, a long time. And those are much more the people that he's affiliated with. And so obviously he's going to give them gifts and he's going to do things that are good for them because that's going to create the kind of long-term business relationships that he's looking for. And also, I think in his mind, promoting this idea of American supremacy is also a way to create a friendly business environment for him going forward. I do think that he wants America to be a playground for the wealthiest people in the world. They come spend money here. They spend money at Trump hotels, build Trump hotels in their countries, that sort of thing. That's Trump's vision. And so massive defense spending is useful for that mission. There are, like I said, there's some interesting things in this bill. I think no tax on tips on its face, I think that's a fine policy. It is weird the way, if you've ever worked in service, specifically with waiters, the way they get paid is weird because they take home their tips, but then that tax money comes out of their paycheck, which is already not very much anyway because they get paid less hourly than other employees in most states. So sometimes they, they'll work however many hours and only get a few cents on their paycheck. It's a weird system. And I don't know why that became such a core issue for Trump. Certainly no Republican has ever proposed that I can think of. So I don't know how he came across that one or why that even has carried through this far. It seems to me that he thinks that's a good way to kind of give a handout to people that he can take credit for. And he knows how to do that. He's done it before with the original stimulus check that came out. He did advocate for Republicans to put that in there, keep that in there, which they might not have. This was the original COVID relief bill that passed. It was similar. It was a big bill. They had to do something, and Trump was the one who was advocating for Republicans to send checks directly to people. He also wanted his name on the check. So he knows how to offer things like this to voters and claim credit for it in a way that other Republicans are allergic to. However, this is a way that they tend to be more open to doing. This is what they want. They want to supposedly remove the tax burden on people and use that to whittle away at the administrative state. But ultimately, the people who benefit the most from that are the people with the most money, whereas the people who need the administrative state the most, the people who need government the most, are the ones who get screwed when taxes get cut across the board. This is all just about how Trump's government is going to balance itself and what types of things they think are priorities. And while it may seem good on the face that there are certain offerings in there for the average person, those are going to be the first things to go. Some of them I would be surprised if they make it to the final bill at all. And ultimately, this is not only a tax giveaway for the rich, but this is to shift a large portion of tax spending in America towards the military and towards, the Gestapo of ICE and Border Patrol, and to essentially militarize America further. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. And if you really want to support, consider becoming a member. That's the best way to support this channel. I'm posting different kinds of stuff there, like podcasts that don't make it to the main channel, book reviews, movie reviews, also music. If you like the music that plays in the back of these podcasts, all that's going to be posted there, as well as my EPs. I just dropped a new EP called Dead Internet Theory, which is now available on all platforms, but it was available first for members only. So if you want early access to future music and projects like that, become a member. And if there's other stuff that you would like to see as members only content, let me know and we'll figure some things out.